So, while trying to think up ideas for videos last week, I started to go down my usual YouTube rabbit hole while thinking about topics, and that's when I saw a clip from the classic DreamWorks film Bee Movie, and this got me thinking. I used to love Bee Movie as a kid, and I would watch it like all the time. But to be completely honest, I can't remember the last time I watched the movie in full. Like, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 years ago? I didn't even rewatch it when it became a big meme in like 2016. And you know me, I'm all about the funny memes. I think since all this time went by, I kind of realized that this movie is one of the weirdest things to ever be put out by a major film studio. So, first off, the story of how this movie got made needs to be told in order to understand the batshit insanity of Bee Movie as a whole. So, Steven Spielberg and Jerry Seinfeld were just, hanging out, eating dinner. It was probably like 2006 at the time, so they were like playing some Gears of War on the Xbox. But Jerry, he cracks a joke, as he does, being a funny guy, and he says, "Hey, wouldn't it be funny if we made a movie about bees and we called it Bee Movie?" That's a terrible Jerry Seinfeld. I'm sorry. But either way, Spielberg's like, "That's a great idea." So he immediately gets on the phone with Jeffrey Katzenberg over at DreamWorks, and he's like, "Give Jerry Seinfeld a movie right now." And then Katzenberg's like, "Okay." So now, Jerry Seinfeld's life has become an episode of Seinfeld in a matter of hours. Shit, Jerry thinks. I have to make a movie about bees. So this madman, he hires 3 other writers, 2 of which have already wrote for Seinfeld. And they draft 212 scripts before finally agreeing on the final script. Now imagine, most scripts for feature-length films go through like 6 to 8 drafts. Sometimes, if the writers really want to get it right, they'll start dipping into those double digits, go for 10 to 15. But 212. You'd think that after that many rewrites of a script, that this movie would be near perfect. And then, when you read the plot synopsis, you wonder what the hell happened. So, it's very obvious that this movie was written by 4 different people, because the plot is literally all over the place. So it starts off with Barry B. Benson, and he just graduated college, and he doesn't know what he wants to do with his life. He wants something more than just working as a crud picker and whatnot. So he goes, and he messes with the pollen jockeys, and then they dare him to leave the hive with them. So he does. Now, up to this point, this movie feels like a nice standard adventure movie, where Barry's gonna get lost, and he's gonna have to find his way back home. It's going to be nice and heartwarming, and that is exactly what happens at first. He gets separated from the group, and he ends up in a person's house to avoid the rain. Or, it's actually their apartment, because this movie takes place in New York City. Speaking of which, 50% of all big-budget Hollywood movies take place in, the same 3 locations, if the movie's set in America. Anyway, this woman, Vanessa, saves Barry from getting squashed by a bunch of other humans, so Barry thanks her by talking to her. This opens up an entirely new can of worms. First off, Barry talked to humans earlier in this movie, and it's shrugged off like it's nothing.
Huh? What? Oh, no!
There's a bee in the car! Ah! Hi, bee. Is that here?
But also, he says just now, before talking to Vanessa, that talking to humans is forbidden. This movie does not run on Ratatouille logic, where the animals can just talk to each other, but humans can't understand the animals. Instead, it's more of a Toy Story logic, where they kinda know they can't talk to them, because that would be weird. But Barry does it anyway. He just talks to Vanessa. And then they start forming a bond with each other. And then, at this point, the movie becomes a romantic comedy, where a bee is attracted to a human, and vice versa.
You coming?
I am now! This plotline is then immediately brushed off because it is strange, and it's replaced with the bee rights plot, where Barry sues humanity for taking advantage of the bees. During this plotline, the interspecies relationship plotline briefly comes up twice, to just remove a character from the story and also serve as tension and fake character death. So Ken, Vanessa's boyfriend that tried to kill Barry before, becomes rightfully angry with Barry because he's being cucked by a bee, so he attempts to kill him again, but then he is promptly thrown out of the story for doing so.
And for your information, I prefer sugar-free artificial sweeteners made by man!
Then, the fat lawyer, Montgomery, makes Barry's friend Adam very mad by saying that Barry and Vanessa fuck, so Adam stings him. And I get the lawyer's plan to make the bees angry, to like sway the jury in his favor. But why does this make Adam that mad? Anyway, the bees win the case, and all the honey is given back to the bees. The movie, once again, 180s and turns into an environmental movie, because all the bees stop working, and then all of the world's plants start to die. Now, Barry and Vanessa have to go to California to steal flowers from the Rose Parade, take the flowers back to the bees so that they can pollinate Central Park. This inadvertently causes all the other flowers in the world to be okay, because, you know, if Central Park's okay, then everything else is okay. It feels like this movie wanted to be 4 different things, and then they just, like, crammed them all together, and you'd think, you know, 212 scripts, you couldn't come up with a better one? What a film.